Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hello. Welcome back. How's everyone doing? I've got tons of stuff going on that I wanted to touch base with you on. I think I told you a couple of weeks ago that Phoenix Rising is doing so great. The women in there they're really moving, man. They're moving through some hard shit, and they're doing it in this beautiful collective of support. And that looks like so many different things. You know, we've got women who are having to strategize before leaving and figure out all of the things that they need to address before they even have the conversation. We've got women who are, on the other side and navigating co-parenting. We've got women grappling with their sexuality. We've got, there's just so many different stories and so many different places that women are at. And so because of that, I just kind of want to, impress upon you that wherever you're at, if you have made this decision, whether you've had the conversation, haven't had the conversation, man, you're going to find your people in Phoenix Rising. With that said, I think that's all I'll tell you about for now. I think that's enough because I want to get to today's episode with Sadie Marie of Divorced and Happy. She is the host of Sadie's Divorced and Happy podcast. She empowers divorced men and women globally to embrace the exciting, playful, and even spicy life that awaits them after divorce. She also produces Divorced and Happy social events in cities across the country, including the Twin Cities, Denver, and Chicago. So you can find out more about that at divorcedandhappy.net. And this conversation is great. We talk about feeling disempowered in your marriage to reclaiming your personal empowerment after divorce and everything in between. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Sadie Marie. Sadie, thank you so much for coming on and talking about being divorced and happy.
Happy being the critical word. Yes. Happy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. So, okay, why don't we, I actually hate this question usually, but I'm going to ask it. And if you hate it, just hit pass and we'll pass. I was just wanted to sort of hear a little bit about your story and how you got to this place being so happy.
So I've been divorced about 6 years now. And I look at photos. I don't know if this has been your experience, but I look at photos of myself from when I was married. First of all, I had very short hair. I weighed 30 pounds more, and I was not happy.
Yeah.
And I look at that image of that woman and I'm like, oh, first of all, I'm relieved to not be that woman anymore. But I know the journey has been really meaningful to be on the other side of a difficult marriage. And I know a lot of your clients and listeners are at that place where they're making that difficult decision, where they're terrified. And I remember that very vividly, that journey going through a divorce. But the other side of divorce is the best. It is the best. If you're listening, it is the best.
Oh my God. Okay. So tell me why you say that. Why do you say it's the best?
Because you get your life back. I mean, I didn't feel like I had my own life. I didn't feel authentic. I clearly wasn't taking care of myself physically and mentally. I was living like a shell of my existence. And once I got divorced and I was through the shitstorm of divorce, it was like, I use the metaphor because everybody's watched the movie Wizard of Oz, right? We've all seen that movie. and Dorothy's in Kansas and it's dreary and it's black, it's black and white.
Black and white. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then she gets to Oz and it's like, ah. Like, it's like rainbows and butterflies and everything. And that's how I felt probably the first couple of years, right after my divorce, because everything was new and vivacious and colorful. And I grew my hair longer and I wore bright colors and I took care of myself and I lost weight, all these different things because I felt so good inside. I'm like, I get to be authentic again. I get to actually confess to my friends. I was not happy in my marriage. And I will say some of my friends were kind of hurt by that I didn't share when I was going through that time. But, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be authentic. And then once I had the courage to change my life, I was ready to do a lot of things, Kate. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I want to get into that. But first I want to say, no, I definitely do. First, I want to say that thing about your friends is really, really big because I had friends who, legit were really angry with me for, quote, lying to them for so long.
They took it very personally.
Yeah. Fair. I was like, first of all, guess what? This isn't about you. Right. And secondly, like I was lying to myself.
Right. And that's the truth. That is such a good point. If you can't be honest with yourself, it's kind of hard to be honest with other people.
Right.
That whole shame thing, it's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that I'm in this marriage and now these things are happening? And I think also what I love about being on the other side of divorce is I don't feel like I'm a victim anymore. And I'm going to just own it. I had quite the victim mentality in my marriage. Like things are just, quote, happening to me. Like I had no power. I had no say. That's not true. P.S. I had a lot of power and a lot of say, which helped me change my life because I finally said, I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm going to have something better than this.
Right.
But, I'm just going to also own too that I chose, maybe on a subconscious level, but I was giving my power to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't giving it to me. And so after divorce, like giving all that power back to me, it's like, what can't I do? I can do all the things, I love that feeling, that unstoppable feeling you have when you get through a divorce. It's like, bring it. I got this. I can do this. Never letting that go. Never letting that go.
What would you say to somebody who hears this in you, right? But cannot fathom that for themselves right now? They feel so disempowered, right?
Sure. I would say to that person, if they have the resources to find a therapist, because that mindset can be shifted, I would say to that person, start doing something physically. During my divorce, I took boxing classes.
Me too. Or actually, I did it before my divorce. It was one of the things, it was one of the catalyzing factors, right? Was that the rage was starting to like come out and I was like, oh, I'm really fucking angry.
Who knew? Leave it to boxing. But for me, it was great because I could just let out the stress. So if you are feeling like you're not powerful, do something physically with your body that makes you feel powerful.
Yes.
Challenge yourself some way physically.
Yeah. Right. It's hard, I think, for people to imagine when they hear us on the other side, right? I think often people will make up that we were always this way. This isn't a transformation, right? And I guess I really want to impress upon people that for both of us, this is a transformation. The person that you see or hear before you right now, this is not who we were in our marriages.
No, I was always the pleaser, wanting to be the pleaser in my marriage. I mean, I had that good girl thing going on, and I now say I'm a recovering good girl. Like, I don't need to be a good girl. I don't need everybody to like me. I don't need everybody to agree with me. I'm good. Like, I don't need that anymore. But in my marriage, I really did. I'm a photographer. That's my profession. And I would always send out, it's a very Midwestern thing, Kate.
Oh, right. Yes.
I always send out the Christmas card.
Yeah.
because I have these gorgeous children and my ex was very handsome and we'd be, the gorgeous family and I'd get all these compliments. And inside I'd be like, oh, but if you only knew the truth.
Yeah. Right.
And so now it's so freeing. Not that I, just walk the streets claiming my truth or professing my truth per se, but I'm quicker to be like, yeah, this is my truth. Like I kind of know when I'm bullshitting myself, I can own it quicker than when I ever did when I was married. And I feel so grateful for that, I am free of needing to please and perform and be something else so other people will like me and accept me. It's like, do I like me? Do I accept me? Okay. If I don't, I'm going to work on that because that's what matters the most. She's leaning in.
That right. That being said, right. And I again, like, I want people to understand that like this, it takes work. Right. And I agree with you. If possible, a therapist, a coach, somebody to help you through this, because sometimes you need to borrow strength. Right. I think for my clients, for, like borrowing someone else's power and borrowing someone else's strength when you don't feel like you have it of your own can be really powerful.
Why do we read a book? Why do we watch a movie? Because we want to relate to that character on the screen. We want to believe that we can have that life too. I mean, one thing I've learned just through my own podcast and social media is people like my page because I have fun. I'm being playful. I'm being spicy. And they see me doing it and they're like, well, if she can do it, maybe I can do it, which is absolutely true.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Speaking of spicy.
Yes.
And being a recovering good girl.
I know, right?
Let's talk about some of the fun that you get to have or that you have been having in the last few years. I'm curious about your journey through that and through the fun and the play and the dating and the sex and the, like what's possible on the other side.
Well, I learned things that my body could do that I had no idea they could do.
Wow. Okay.
Before marriage. I loved learning that I was a sexual being because I am the daughter of a minister, speaking about good girl, dad's a retired dad.
Right.
So I was never really given I wasn't given permission to be a sexual being. And I can't say my 20s, I really explored my sexuality much. I was very focused on doing the right thing. And, if I ever had sex in a relationship, it's because we, were committed and monogamous. I never had any casual play like that. And after divorce, I gave myself permission to just date and have fun and experiment. Kate, I mean, I went to swinger parties. I
love it.
I had so much curiosity around polyamory and non-monogamy and what did it mean to be a unicorn? Like all the things out of the box around, sexual exploration. I can't say I did them all, but I was curious and open and definitely dated differently. I have been pretty much non-monogamous this whole time. I have not had a monogamous relationship, like a traditional monogamous relationship since my divorce. And it's been almost 6 years. That doesn't mean that I don't want connection or depth. It's just, I'm not as attached to monogamy, which for me is kind of mind blowing because my whole life, I just wanted this one person, and now I'm like, well, I mean, maybe 2, 3, I'm not really attached to monogamy. It's kind of hard to communicate that to men sometimes because they don't understand why a woman wouldn't want monogamy. They don't get that. They get why they might want monogamy.
They don't want monogamy.
And then like a woman is saying this? Wait a minute, time out. So that's been kind of empowering to be like, yeah, I don't really need that anymore. Like it doesn't mean I want shallow connection or that I'm just sleeping around or that's not what non-monogamy means to me.
Right. Okay.
But I kind of like that. It feels powerful. Like, yeah, I'm not super attached to having a boyfriend. I've even been a little, I'm just going to lean in. I don't know if your audience, but I've been a little bi-curious. I about being bi-curious on my podcast because I'm like, well, I mean, I know I identify as heterosexual, but I'm a little curious. Just going to say it. And to be able to say it out loud, it's kind of fun for me. Just saying.
I think that's great. And I think my audience actually will very much appreciate a conversation around that because I think a lot of women when they get divorced, when they've been in a long-term heterosexual relationship, often get out and realize like, actually, I think I've been bi like my whole life and I've just kind of been repressing it. So I don't know if that's the same for you, but I do know a lot of women.
I don't really say I'm bisexual because I haven't ever sexually been with a woman, but I'm open to it.
You're open to it. Hey, ladies.
I'm curious. I am.
Hey, ladies.
It's true. A pretty lady turns my head for sure.
Okay. Everybody hear that?
Hey, it's I didn't know we're going there today about happiness after divorce. But that's the freedom, right? That's the freedom. Like I feel so free that I am open to more things than I used to be.
You get to choose.
I'm happy about that.
I'm happy about it too for you.
Oh, yeah,
okay, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay. We are back to, we were talking about being bi-curious before the break. We are going to, I think maybe, I don't know. I mean, I was going to say move on from that, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is about freedom and this is about freedom of expression and freeing yourself to choose whatever you want to choose.
Right. And I've really leaned into that since my divorce. And it's not just around dating and sex, but also it's around, how I spend my time and who I stay connected to. I think after divorce, and maybe this is something your listener can resonate with, there were just some relationships that I did not want to stay connected in those relationships because they were negative. They reminded me of like, oh, that friend represents how angry and sad I was because this person is always angry and sad. And so there's that freedom to also move on from other relationships in a very kind and loving way after divorce. I think because of that transformation, there's just certain connections that don't resonate anymore. And that was also meaningful in the sense like I don't have to stay in this relationship to be the nice person. I can actually move on, like if someone wasn't getting their cup filled being my friend, I wouldn't really want them to just hang out because they felt, sorry for me or they felt guilty. It's like, move on, like find the people that you resonate with. So I also think it's important to say like your happiness it's bigger than just dating and sex. It's like, who gets to have my time? Who gets to have my focus? What do I want to focus on? And just really being true to myself. It's like really been a season of being true to me. And that's been awesome. I mean,
it really is. And there are two things I want to say. First of all, about the friendships, right? Because the people that were like angry at me for not being honest, right? For me, it was like, oh, that's weird. You're a narcissist just like him, right? Because it was my same picker that was picking all of my relationships from my husband to my friends. And so it does make sense that as you change and shift and grow in your life, the friendships that you chose at a different point they're going to fall away, and that's okay. And as you said, you can do it kindly, you can do it with grace, you can do it right.
Exactly. It can be a little awkward, but doing it with grace and kindness. And it doesn't, it's not necessarily like you have to have a conversation, you're breaking up with a friend, but just things change and it's okay. It's kind of, it's when you've had a friend since you were 25 years old and that person is no longer your friend after 25 years, it feels there's a loss there, but there's also huge power in knowing that now I get to have friendships also that fill my cup, and I get to have friendships where people are being thoughtful towards me. And I have plenty of friends like that. I certainly am not low on good friends. I don't mean it like that, but it's just, that's something I absolutely observed after divorce. It's because I had changed, I had changed and not everybody was comfortable with how I had changed. And that's okay. And it's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's okay. It's also okay to let those go. I know that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had friends during my marriage, but again, I was so disconnected from myself that I don't think my friendships were all that sort of rich. The richness of the friendships that I have now, and people always comment on how many really, really close friends I have. And it's true. I do. I have so many friends and they are all like incredibly dear to me. They're intimate friendships. They really, really matter to me. That fills my cup. Again, we were talking about, being single and not being in a relationship. Like those relationships fill me up, they do. They satisfy a lot of that need for connection that otherwise I would have wanted to get from a man. So, okay, let's talk about, like you said, that you get to be sort of unapologetically and authentically you. And so, but what kind of work did you do to be able to get there? And I imagine it began probably while you were still married, right? Because there's some work that you have to do to get to a point where you're ready to get to the other side of this. Let's talk about like the work that you do to become a happy person, really.
Well, I shared some of it earlier, just around that self-care, like self-respect, authenticity. I think I have friendships now that really, I have friends that are having my back to make sure that I'm staying authentic, because it's easy to slip into that good girl role. So I absolutely have friends that call me out on things or really check in. And I think it's practicing that authenticity, practicing really saying what I'm feeling and thinking. I've had therapy. I've been in therapy. That's been very helpful. I've done things like EMDR, brain spotting, to work through different trauma. And, I think it's also just what's really helped me do the work is being consistent with myself. Because one thing I learned about myself is that I wasn't really good at honoring other people. I wasn't really good at boundary setting. Like I would let people kind of cross the boundary all the time. But one thing I learned through therapy is that I couldn't keep my own boundaries with myself. So if I can't respect my own boundaries, like this is what I'm committing to, and this is what I'm going to do, and then I don't keep those commitments for myself, it's really easy to let someone else also cross the boundary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I've been much more mindful of since my divorce is really sticking to it, and if I'm not, then I need to go and get more support. Like if I can't honor my own boundaries, then I need to reach out and get more support. So that's one of the biggest takeaways for me on the work. It's like, well, what's your boundary here? And how are you honoring it? I had an opportunity with someone I was dating casually where I gave him a boundary of like, this is how I need to have communication be. It needs to be like this. I mean, if you need more than 3 days to text me back, why bother? Right.
Right. Yeah.
So that happened where he didn't text me. He didn't text me for days and days. And I'm like, okay, well, moving on. Where I think like the me 3-4 years ago would have been like waiting for him and getting anxious and overthinking it and taking it personally. When the me today is like, oh well, moving on.
I love that as an example of honoring your own boundaries.
Being able to say to him, hey, this is what I need and good luck to you and peace out. I mean, it wasn't like this big drama. It wasn't like, it was like, whatever, moving on, because I know that I'm going to be okay. And there's plenty of other people to be dating and it's not personal and it's not about me. And I don't need to like put up with his BS and I can honor my boundary. He knew my boundary. And now I get to honor it. He didn't honor it, but I am going to. And so it was like, okay, universe, thanks for the practice. Got it. Keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I love that. I think that's so important. I think the PMLity talks about, internal and external boundaries, and they're very specifically exactly what you said, right? That we have our internal boundaries are how we allow people to infiltrate our thoughts and our behaviors and all of these things, right? And I used to be that way. I used to be so reactionary. If someone didn't text me back, then I was obsessing and perseverating and making up stories, or I would be yelling at them and like making them wrong and so much shit, right? And you're right. It's like, oh, this is a person who I was very clear about what I need. They're now actively choosing not to provide it for me. And so my job is to honor myself and my own boundaries.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Simple. Actually,
it's very simple.
The practice to
like
get there, though.
decades, decades of therapy.
I'm divorced door and got that down.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Well, that's like the biggest boundary there is, right? And that's what I say in my book too. It's like saying I want a divorce is one of the biggest boundaries you can ever set. Because I don't know about you, but in my marriage, I was saying, you can't treat me that way for years. But I was staying in the marriage and he was continuing to treat me that way. So really he could. And it wasn't until I was right as it wasn't until I was ready to be like, oh no, actually you can't treat me that way because I am now no longer your wife. That's when it changed.
And it's been interesting too, since divorce, is to keep that boundary. Because you still have that co-parenting dynamic. And so for me, again, it's been practicing like, yeah, I got divorced for a reason. And I'm done with that. Like that is over.
Yes.
And if this is how this is going to continue to be between our connection, like, then there's like some things we have to figure out. So yeah, I've definitely had practice with the ex around my own stuff, right? Like my own way of behaving, I've had to change and work on too, which has been good for me.
Girl, same. And it's really challenging in divorce. It's really challenging because on the one hand, you're divorced, right? And you don't want to have that connection. Like you don't have to be in that dynamic anymore. But this is also, you're having to stay connected to this person and talk to them sometimes on a daily basis about logistics or whatever. And it's hard to not get sucked back into the dynamics of the relationship over and over and over again.
Right. But I also will say, and points to you as well, because I know that you've talked about on my podcast, working through your codependency. One thing I will say is I no longer, like, he can be in the worst mood and does not impact me. Like he can be tantruming in the corner and that's not about me. And I feel so happy and grateful again that I don't take that on anymore. And the divorce is obviously the significant boundary, but you can still take it on even if you are divorced. So the practice of like, that's not about me. That's not my business. He can mind his business and I'll mind my business. And as long as I'm okay, I'm good. And my kids are okay. It's really claiming that happiness. Like this person no longer has an impact on my happiness in the way that that person has in the past impacted it. So that's very freeing and liberating and empowering. And, for me, when I think about that choice to stay in that situation, it's like, wow, I want to say to anyone listening to this is that practice that love, that self-love, because for me, once I could really like own that and claim that and talk differently to myself and treat myself differently and have my focus be on different types of connections, like I just don't have time for any of that. I think part of me used to like, there was something about that I needed, there was something about that I needed that. And I do not need that anymore. I do not need that anymore, Kate. And that feels good.
Listen, it's amazing. We're going to take one more break and we'll be right back. Okay. We were talking about not needing it anymore, but I think it's something you said before that, which was that you get something out of it. And I think it's really, I do believe that the key to unlocking that chain and ripping it off once and for all is to address, like, what am I getting out of this? Right? What am I getting out of continuing to be in this dynamic and relationship? And I think for me, there was a lot of, I get to be right. There was a lot of, I get to be the bigger person. I get to be right about him. Right? I don't know what else. What did you ever identify what it was specifically that you got out of that?
I think it's a reinforcement, from childhood that I'm not enough. Yeah. Like no matter what I do, I'm not enough. I was raised I had loving parents, but I was raised by parents who were always doing and producing, and perfection was kind of a big thing.
Yes.
I shared earlier, I was a daughter of a minister. I had to be the good girl. So I think it from such a young age, it's like I was felt like I could never be enough or never do enough. I could never be good enough. And that was like kind of reinforcing that. Like if I was enough, someone would treat me different. If I was enough, someone would talk to me in a kind way. If I was enough, someone would be gentle and soft with me. But I'm not enough. So this is what I get.
That's right.
Yes. For me, it's like, no, fuck that. I am enough and I'm moving on. So for me, it's like, I'm like, no, I remember talking, with my minister actually, and saying there has to be more than this. Like there has to be more than this. Like I was just done accepting like that was my life. And whatever part of me was ready for more, I'm so grateful because that choice that I deserve more and I want more. And it wasn't even like someone else, some new relationship is going to give me that. It's like I will choose to create a life that will give me that. It wasn't about, getting divorced so I could find a better, healthier relationship, quote unquote. Yeah. But I did find that relationship and that's been with me. So that's why, again, I can easily say I'm not needing monogamy because I'm not pining for that one person to give me something that I didn't have in my marriage. I can give that to myself. Healthy relationships outside of romantic ones are very rewarding for me. I have a lot of male friends. That's one thing I've loved about divorce is that I can have male friends again and nobody thinks, it's inappropriate. I love it because I remember I was a girl in high school and junior high, I had all these male friends and it was great. Aww. So I love that, I love having male friends. I can just call them up and we can have real conversation and there's nothing romantic or weird going on that we have to worry about. And it's great. I love it.
It's so good. I love the freedom that you just sort of exude and express and own and claim. And you do it in such a sort of vivacious and I love it. Just, yeah, it's infectious.
It is.
It's infectious. It is. It is. So, okay, I wanted to ask you one more question because I saw this on your Instagram and I didn't know what it was. And I know it's coming out on your podcast. So something about a sprinkle.
Oh, that episode was a teaser to my season 5, which has dropped already. So yeah, get sprinkled. Yeah. So
tell me about, can you tell us what it is?
So part of my dating. Okay. So I'm a very creative person. I'm an artist. I love creating, period.
Yeah.
So when I used to go on first dates and they would get a little boring, I'd be like, hey, we should play a game. Do you want to play a get to know you game? And the guy would be like, sure. Like, what's happening?
Right.
And I created this one game that was called Vanilla Strawberry Sprinkles. Okay. So vanilla was like the dating basics, compatibility questions we'd ask each other. And then the strawberry was more ethics and emotional EQ. And then the sprinkles, Kate, was like the delicious, naughty questions that we'd like build our way up to. So I was asking my listeners if they wanted to get sprinkled. Which meant you want to get, spicy,
a little
naughty. Yeah.
A little naughty. Okay.
So I actually have a quiz. Your listener can take the quiz at my website, divorcedandhappy.net. It's the vanilla strawberry sprinkles quiz. It's a dating profile flavor quiz. And there's like 6 different flavors you can be. They're not vanilla strawberry sprinkles. Okay. They're their own unique flavors and you can take the quiz. And what's even more fun, Kate, is you can take it on a date because there's a 1 scoop version for your solo play fun. And there's a 2 scoop version where you literally on a date can be on my website and you can do these questions simultaneously and you can share your answers and you're going to learn a lot about your date. You might even get sprinkled after your date. Wink, wink. So there you go. I love your face.
I'm gonna go take the quiz, everybody.
It's all right. Fun. Yeah. The VSS quiz, vanilla strawberry sprinkles.
Strawberry sprinkles. I love it. I love it. Sprinkles are my favorite. I don't care what the flavor of ice cream is. I always want sprinkles. So I don't know what that says about me.
Well, take the quiz. I want to know what flavor you are.
I'm gonna do it right after we get off this call.
Very fun.
So, all right, divorcedandhappy.net. Go take the quiz. And then everyone can find you also over on Instagram. Tell everybody where they can find all the things.
Well, I have over 100 episodes about life after divorce. My podcast is very, if you haven't figured that out by my personality, very playful, spicy, and out of the box topics. And that's at divorcedandhappy.net. You can find every episode. You can also find me almost all podcast platforms. I'm in my 5th season. We're having a lot of fun. And of course, on social media at Sadie's Divorced and Happy, my Instagram community is the best. We do a lot of fun game nights where I'll have different themes and topics and we play games. Are you shocked? I love games. So join in the fun, join in the life after divorce fun at Sadie's Divorced and Happy.
Oh, thank you so much, Sadie. You're awesome and infectious, and I love it. And I'm so glad you were here.
Thank you. Cheers to life after divorce, right, Kate?
Cheers, baby.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.